Hunter in Hartford, Alabama. Welcome to the Narrow Path. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Steve, how you doing?
Good.
Good. When I see this argument from Calvinists from time to time, where the passage in Scripture where it says that, was it Esau that God said he hated, or
Jacob I have loved,
one
Esau
of them?
I've hated, right. Malachi
Yeah,
chapter 1
and
and Romans 9.
and they use that as proof that God doesn't save everyone. And
Okay, I'll address that.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So in Malachi, at the beginning of Malachi, God said to Israel, Jacob I have loved, Esau I have hated. And then they said, well, how have you loved us? And he said, because I wasted Esau's land and his mountains I made desolate. Now, what he's talking about there, he's not talking about the man Esau or the man Jacob. He's talking about Edom. Esau is the Edomites, and Jacob is the Israelites. And this is an extremely common way of talking about them. You know, the Amalekites are sometimes called Amalek. Amalek was the progenitor of the Amalekites. Well, the whole nation was called Amalek. The whole nation of Israel was called Israel. That was a man's name. The founder of that nation was a man named Jacob, who was also named Israel. So the nation is called Israel. Esau founded a nation called Edom, and the Edomites were called Esau many times in the prophets. In this case, that's what Malachi is doing. He's referring to the Edomites and how God had destroyed them, basically. Now, he had destroyed Israel, too. This is in the context of them being taken away to Babylon. But God had restored Israel, but he didn't restore the Edomites. And so he's pointing out to Israel that they haven't appreciated the fact that he's shown them special favor. When he says, Jacob I have loved, he means my behavior toward the nation of Israel has been that of favoritism. And Esau I have hated means my behavior toward Edom, the Edomites, Esau, has not been favorable. And the dichotomy between love and hate is used that way many times in Scripture. In Genesis, we're told that Jacob, of course, had two wives, Rachel and Leah. And it says he loved Rachel more than he loved Leah. And the next verse says, when God saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb. Now, when I think of someone hating someone, I think of them having great animosity and malice toward them. But there it just means that Leah was not loved as much as Rachel was. It specifically says Jacob loved Rachel more than Leah, and therefore when God saw that Leah was hated, well, that's kind of the way they used it. In contrast with somebody else, if you favor one and not the other, then a manner of speaking, one was loved and the other was hated. Remember when Jesus in Luke chapter 14 said, if anyone comes after me and does not hate his father and his mother and his wife and his children, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. Well, that sounds pretty severe. But the parallel to that is in Matthew chapter 10, where Jesus said, anyone who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. He that loves wife and children more than me is not worthy of me. Okay, that's a little more palatable. I have to hate my wife and children? Well, what's that mean? It means I have to love God more than I love them. Hate and love in Scripture, it's simply an idiomatic characteristic of the Middle Eastern writing, I guess, doesn't mean the same thing all the time. God, when he says, I loved Jacob, I hated Esau, simply means I did well to Jacob, I favored them, I didn't do the same thing to the Edomites. This has nothing to do with God choosing somebody to be saved and somebody to be lost. In fact, there's no evidence in the Bible that Esau didn't go to heaven. That's not what Paul's talking about. He's not talking about who goes to heaven, who doesn't. He's talking about how God deals with nations. And the reason he's doing it so, it fits the context of the whole chapter. He's saying that, Jacob and Esau came from one man. They were one family, and yet God favored Jacob over Esau. And then, even in Israel, God favored some over the other. He took one lump of clay, Paul says, which was Israel, and made two different vessels. One vessel for honor, one for dishonor. He's talking about the fact that the faithful remnant within Israel now are the vessel of honor, and the apostate Jews are the vessels of dishonor. And what he's saying is he's answering the question raised at the beginning of the chapter. implied, why isn't Israel saved? God said he's going to save Israel. Why aren't they saved? And he's saying they are. You just have to know who Israel is. He says in chapter 9, verse 6, they are not all Israel who are of Israel, meaning the nation of Israel isn't all comprised of the people that God's calling Israel. If God says he's going to save Israel, you can count on it. He is saving them. They are being saved. But that's the faithful remnant of Israel. The whole nation isn't Israel. Not all who are of Israel are Israel, Paul says. So he's saying just as God distinguished among Isaac's sons, Isaac had the promises of God, but only one of his sons got the promise, not the other. Jacob got them, Esau did not. God favored one over the other. So even within Israel, God favors one portion of the family more than the other. He favors the ones who are faithful, the ones who love Jesus, the ones who are Christian disciples, Jews who have followed the Messiah. The others, not so much. So that's what he's saying. He's not even talking about predestining any human beings to be saved or lost. In fact, being saved or lost is not even his subject. Because what the statement, Jacob I've loved, Esau I've hated, is talking about national destinies, not individuals. It's talking about the nation of Israel and the nation of Esau, not the men in question. Furthermore, it's not talking about their salvation. Because he also quotes in the same place, he quotes two Old Testament passages. One is Malachi 1, Jacob I've loved, Esau I've hated, and he also quotes Genesis 25:23. He links them together. In Genesis 25:23, it's Rebekah is pregnant with Jacob and Esau, and God gives her a prophecy. He says, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples shall be separated from between your feet. And he says, one will be greater than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Now, the older was Esau, and Jacob was the younger. They were twins, but Esau came up first. But he's not talking about the man Esau is going to serve the man Jacob. That never happened. But the nation of Esau did serve the Jews, and that's how he starts his oracle. 2 nations are in your womb. Okay, yeah, it's actually just 2 babies, but they are the founders of 2 nations. And the founder of the older nation, Edomites, will serve that of the younger nation, the Israelites. So, in other words, these verses are not even talking about people going to heaven or hell. This is talking about people's one side of the family is going to serve the other side of the family. That's earthly destinies. And what, of course, what Abraham's selection was for was not to go to heaven, although I'm not saying that Abram didn't go to heaven. I think he did. But when God promised something to Abram, he didn't say, you're going to go to heaven. He said, your seed is going to bring blessing to all the nations. That's something that happens on this planet. And that was the promise God made to Abraham. And the question in the next generation is, of Isaac's 2 sons, which of them were going to be the one through whom the seed would bless the nations? And then of Jacob's sons, which would be the one? Turned out to be Judah. Of Judah's family, which was the family of David, and so forth. What God is saying is, the nations are going to be blessed through someone that we call the Messiah, that we call him Jesus. But he's going to come through whom? It wasn't going to be through Edomites. It's going to come through the Jews. So the whole passage is not even discussing people going to heaven or hell. He's talking about God favoring one group of the family over the other group of the family for an earthly destiny. Now, in this case, of course, those that he favors are also the believing remnant, which means they're also going to go to heaven. That happens to believers. But he's justifying the fact that not all the Israelites are saved, because they are not all Israel who are of Israel. That's his point. So he's not, the Calvinists have simply not even paid close attention to Paul's discussion. They know he's talking about Israel in the opening verses of chapter 9, and then once you get past the potter and the clay part, they know the rest of chapters 9, 10, 11 are about Israel. But they think that Paul decided just to change subjects entirely. At one point, talk about Jacob and Esau and Pharaoh and Moses and the potter and the clay. And then, yeah, that's kind of maybe an aside where Paul forgot he was talking about Israel. Now he's talking about predestination and Calvinism. Now, Paul is not changed the subject. If a person is able to follow Paul's reasoning, you realize that this portion is part of what he's reasoning before it and after it. I would recommend, if you want to understand Paul's reasoning in Romans 9 through 11, to go to my website and listen to my verse by verse through of Romans 9 through 11. If you want to know about the Calvinist arguments, I have a series of lectures called God's Sovereignty and man's salvation, which is all about that. And I deal with those passages there too.